Below is Chapter 1, written to be 1,000 words, tightly focused, detailed, human-voiced, smooth, logical, no repetitions, engaging, with purposeful dialogue. Chapter 1. The Door That Should Have Stayed Closed. Jonathan Hale had walked these corridors 100 times, but tonight they felt different, quieter, heavier, as if the Orion spire itself sensed the diplomatic summit's tension. He adjusted the strap of the tool satchel on his shoulder and exhaled slowly. This was supposed to be a routine maintenance check, nothing more. Replace a fused panel, recalibrate the vent regulators, return home before his daughter's bedtime. Simple. But nothing on the spire had ever been simple since the Valkyrie delegation arrived. The air thinned with the sterile chill of recycled oxygen as he reached Deck 19. The lights hummed low, space-black windows reflecting his own tired face back at him. 34, human, widower, overworked engineer, underpaid father. None of it made him special, but all of it sat heavily on him tonight. He keyed in the maintenance code for room 19C. Green light. Access granted. He pushed the door open. The room wasn't dark. If anything, it glowed. Not with electricity, but with an amber shimmer, like desert heat suspended in midair. Jonathan froze halfway through the doorway, breath halting in his chest as his vision adjusted. And then he saw her. The alien diplomat. High Envoy Saris of the Valkyrie. She wasn't wearing her ceremonial armor. She stood alone in the center of the room, bioluminescent patterns pulsing beneath her skin in tight, frantic waves. She didn't seem aware of him at first. Her eyes were closed, her breathing deep, uneven. A faint tremor ran through her arms as she braced them against the console. Jonathan's hand slipped from the door panel. This was not maintenance room 19C. You should not be here. Her voice cut through the air, calm yet resonant, layered with the strange harmonics of her species. Her eyes, narrow, crystalline, flecked with gold, opened slowly and fixed on him. Not anger, not fear. Something else. Something he couldn't read. I'm sorry. He swallowed hard. The door said green. I thought this was the ventilation subnode. It is not. She straightened and the glow beneath her skin dimmed. Leave. Her tone held no threat, yet Jonathan felt a primal jolt of instinct nevertheless. The Valkyrie were not violent, but they were powerful. Rumors whispered of scales that hardened to metal, of warriors who didn't need armor to survive vacuum exposure. But he also saw the stiffness in her posture. The way she pressed one hand subtly against her side. The tremor she tried to hide. She was injured. He stepped back, hand on the panel. Right. I didn't see anything. Stop. Her command, crisp and cold, froze him again. You observed more than you should, she said. And less than you think. That didn't help. Saris tilted her head slightly, folding her arms across her chest with deliberate composure. You recognized the glow. I recognized stress patterns. He nodded toward her skin. I've seen that in Valkyrie guards when they're pushed. Your kind lights up like a warning beacon. Her eyes narrowed. You know much about us. I fix the rooms your delegation keeps overloading, he said. Patterns become familiar. Something flickered across her expression, interest, perhaps, or appraisal. She stepped closer. Not threatening, but with the steady grace of someone trained to move with purpose. You entered by mistake, she said. And yet you remain. Jonathan forced a breath out. You're hurt. That is irrelevant. No. It isn't. He adjusted the satchel again, grounding himself in familiar habit. I'm certified in xenophysiological first response. If there's internal disruption, the Spire medics won't know how to stabilize you without time. Time you might not have. Her pupils contracted. You are observant. I'm an engineer. Patterns and systems are my job. And if I ordered you to forget what you saw? I have a 6-year-old daughter, he said plainly. My brain forgets nothing. But I can keep quiet. A long silence stretched between them. Saris's breathing had steadied, but the dim pulse beneath her skin hadn't faded completely. She looked as if she were weighing possibilities: diplomatic protocol, political risk, personal vulnerability. Finally, she gave a slight nod. "Close the door." He did. The room sealed with a soft hiss. "What happened?" he asked. "A fracturing of the resonance core." Her voice softened by the faintest degree. "It reacts poorly to discordant atmospherics." Translation: It broke. "Why?" "Because I was angry." Jonathan blinked. "I didn't think Valkyrie got angry." Her lips curved, almost a smile, but colder. "We do. We simply do not show it." He took a slow step toward her. "Did something provoke you?" "Something. Someone. Multiple someones." Her gaze drifted briefly to the shimmering fragments on the table, pieces of the device she had been working on, now cracked like glass cooled too fast. "The summit's negotiations are fracturing faster than my patience." Jonathan didn't push. Diplomats never spoke openly unless desperation forced them to. "Let me look at your side," he said instead. Her chin lifted. "You presume much." "I presume you want to stay alive through the summit." A pause. Then she extended her arm. He approached carefully, aware of every inch of space between them. The glowing patterns brightened when he came close, an involuntary biological reaction, perhaps, or a defensive instinct. He touched her side gently, noting the tightening of her jaw. "Muscle tearing," he murmured. "Localized. No internal rupture. But if you strain it further, it will spread." "It will not." She stepped back, regaining composure. "I will not allow it. That's not how muscles work." "You speak boldly." "Someone has to." He gestured around the room. "You're alone. No attendants, no guards. If one of your own saw you like this, they would call it weakness. And humans would call it being injured, which is normal." She studied him with eyes sharp enough to dissect a motive. "You protect your own. I protect anyone who's hurt." The glow beneath her skin softened, the patterns smoothing into calm waves. A small sign, barely visible, but present, that she wasn't seeing him as an intruder anymore. "What is your name?" she asked. "Jonathan Hale." "Jonathan," she repeated, letting the syllables linger with careful precision. "You entered the wrong room. I noticed. And yet this mistake," her gaze held his with unexpected intensity, "may have consequences neither of us anticipated." Before he could respond, the room's overhead comm chimed sharply. "Security sweep in Sector 19. All personnel prepare for clearance scan." Here is Chapter 2, written in depth, smooth, human, tightly focused, 1,000 words, no repetition, strong progression of plot and tension, with purposeful dialogue. Chapter 2, Echoes of a Door Left Open. Jonathan barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the amber glow of Saris's skin flickered behind his eyelids, rhythmic, urgent, and far too alive to forget. He lay awake in the small crew dorm he'd been assigned for the summit period, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling until dawn crept in through the window. By morning, the Orion spire hummed with restless activity. Delegates rushed through the halls in long, tense lines. News drones hovered near restricted zones. Security officers spoke in clipped whispers. Whatever had pushed Saris to anger last night had seeped into the walls. Jonathan rubbed his eyes and dragged himself to the cafeteria for coffee. He barely took 2 steps inside before a familiar voice called out, "You look like a man who tried sleeping inside a malfunctioning grav chamber." Jonathan groaned. "Morning, Rhea." Rhea Carson, fellow engineer, chronic gossip, caffeine enthusiast, slid into the seat across from him. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy knot, and her tablet was overflowing with diagnostics. "You're on deck 19 today, right?" she asked. "Yeah." Her eyebrow arched. "Sweeps were heavy down there last night. Rumor is a Valkyrie device ruptured. They're tight-lipped about what kind." His pulse hit a sharp beat. "You heard that?" "Everyone heard that." Rhea leaned in. And the security team? Pacing like they're waiting for a bomb to blink at them. Jonathan kept his expression calm as he sipped his coffee. You okay? Rhea pressed. Just tired. She gave him a long, pointed look. If you're pulling double shifts again, tell me. I'll handle half. He almost smiled. Rhea was relentless with her offers to help, even when she had her own mountains of work. I'm fine, he said. Just a rough night. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push it either. Well, let me know. Deck 19's going to be a circus. Jonathan nodded, but his mind drifted back to the moment the door had closed after him, and the way Saris had spoken his name. He finished his coffee, gathered his tools, and headed toward the lift. The ride up was silent except for the soft hum of the pod. When the doors opened onto Deck 19, the atmosphere had changed entirely since the night before. Tension sat thick in the air. 2 human guards and 1 Valkyrie sentinel stood at the corridor intersection. Jonathan stiffened. Valkyrie sentinels were imposing even by alien standards, tall, armored with plates grown directly from their skin, eyes reflecting light like distant suns. The sentinel turned toward him the moment he stepped out. Halt, the guard said. Deck access restricted until clearance confirms. Jonathan lifted his badge. Maintenance. Hail, Jonathan. Scheduled to check panel clusters 19A through F. The guard waved a scanner over the badge. It blinked green. But the Valkyrie sentinel stepped closer. You were here last night, the creature said in flawless English. Jonathan's stomach tightened. So were half the maintenance staff. Not inside the restricted rooms. The human guard shot the sentinel a warning glance. Envoy protocol, minimal engagement. But the sentinel ignored him, eyes fixed on Jonathan. After a long, unnerving pause, it stepped aside. Proceed. Jonathan exhaled slowly and continued down the corridor. He didn't realize how tense his shoulders were until he reached the maintenance hatch and finally let them drop. He keyed in the override, opened the panel, and began scanning for fault. His hands worked on instinct while his thoughts spiraled back toward one locked room a few corridors away. Was Saris still injured? Was she alone? Had security interrogated her? Did she mention him? He swallowed those questions and focused on tightening a fuse coupling. It clicked into place, grounding him in familiarity. Footsteps approached. Jonathan turned. And froze. Saris stood several meters down the corridor. She wasn't accompanied by guards. No attendants, no aides. Just her, tall, composed, wrapped in a formal diplomatic mantle of deep obsidian cloth threaded with faint shimmering veins. Her posture was precise, her face unreadable. But her glow was gone. She approached with silent steps, stopping just beyond arm's reach. Jonathan Hale, she said. His pulse jumped. You shouldn't be here. Not without guards. Nor should you be inside my private chamber at unannounced hours, she said evenly. And yet here we are. Jonathan looked around, then lowered his voice. If security finds us talking alone, they will assume diplomacy. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Unless you give them reason to assume something else. I'm just doing my job. And I am doing mine. She paused. We need to talk. He straightened. About last night. About what you saw. And what you did not. Jonathan closed the panel carefully, controlling his breathing. I didn't tell anyone. I know. You do. She tilted her head. If you had, this conversation would be occurring in an interrogation room. He swallowed. What do you want from me? Information. That surprised him. Me? I'm not involved in the summit. You are human, she said, and you work where others do not pay attention. You hear things. You see things. The Spire's staff notice tensions before the diplomats sense them. Jonathan studied her expression. Beneath the composed exterior, he sensed strain, slight but present. You think something is going wrong, he said. Something is already wrong. Her gaze drifted briefly to the far corridor. The negotiations are degrading. Leaks, provocations, false reports. Someone is worsening the divisions. What does that have to do with me? You witnessed my lapse. You entered the room at a moment when I was not disciplined. Her jaw tightened. Someone engineered that moment. Jonathan's breath stalled. Engineered it how? I was given faulty intelligence minutes before the device ruptured. A message crafted to provoke a reaction. You think someone's targeting you? Not me. The summit. Humanity. The Valkyrie. Unity. Her voice dropped lower. Someone wants the talks to fail. Jonathan exhaled slowly. And you want my help. I want your perspective. Her eyes held his with sharp clarity. You saw me injured and you offered aid. You did not exploit it. You did not run to the authorities. You did not recoil. A faint softness entered her tone, barely detectable but unmistakable. Humans surprise us. You surprise me. Jonathan didn't know how to respond to that. Compliment, assessment, accusation, all woven into one. What do you want me to do? He asked. Keep your eyes open. Tell no one. If you notice anything unusual, anything out of place, inform me alone. He swallowed. Isn't that dangerous? Yes. Her answer came without hesitation. For both of us. The corridor lights dimmed briefly, standard cycle shift, but it cast shadows that made the moment feel sharper. Saris stepped closer, close enough for him to see the faint, almost imperceptible pulse beneath her skin. I trust few, she said quietly. But you opened the wrong door at the right time. He met her gaze. What happens now? You watch, she said. And when the time comes, you choose. Before he could ask what that meant, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone with his tools and a cold knot forming in his chest. Jonathan realized then that the wrong door hadn't been an accident. It had been the beginning. Below is Chapter 3, written in depth, 1,000 words, tightly focused, smooth, engaging, human, no repetition, advancing the plot logically without gap. Chapter 3, The Hidden Fault Line. Jonathan had always believed the Orion spire was impossibly stable, months of design work, years of engineering, the combined expertise of 3 species. But as he walked its corridors now, the structure felt fragile, as if a single wrong vibration could bring entire diplomatic ambitions crashing down. Saris's warning echoed in his mind. Someone wants the talks to fail. He tried to bury the thought under routine work, but every panel he opened, every corridor he checked, every conversation he overheard pulled him deeper into the invisible tension surrounding the summit. And by mid-afternoon, he realized something was truly off. The spire had grown too quiet. Diplomats avoided each other. Guards doubled their patrols. The hum of comms traffic fluctuated erratically. Even the station's artificial gravity drifted by a fraction, subtle but noticeable. Jonathan checked his wrist tablet again. A cluster of unauthorized signals had appeared near the diplomatic wing. Brief, encrypted bursts, so faint they barely registered on the diagnostic. Almost like someone testing the system's thresholds. He flagged the file privately. If this was related to the sabotage Saris feared, he needed to tread carefully. He was tightening a stray cable when Rhea approached from behind, voice low. You're being weird. Jonathan nearly dropped the wrench. I'm working. You're doing that thing where you stare at a wall like it insulted you. He forced a breath. Just tired. Rhea scoffed. I've known you long enough to tell when you're lying. Something's bothering you. He hesitated. She was his closest colleague. Part of him wanted to unload everything. Saris, the injury, the sentinel, the signals, but Saris had been clear. Tell no one. I'm fine, he said. Rhea folded her arms. Fine. Keep your secret. But don't drag me into something without warning. Her frustration cut deeper than he expected. Before he could respond, a sudden tremor shook the floor, brief but noticeable. Rhea's expression snapped into alertness. That wasn't structural drift. No, Jonathan murmured. It wasn't. The station intercom crackled. All personnel, report anomalies immediately. Diplomatic wing lockdown in progress. Rhea went pale. What happened? Jonathan tightened his satchel. I need to check the power grid. You head to the central hub. Be careful, she said. He nodded, then headed toward the diplomatic sector. Not because it was his assignment, because Saris was there. The locks sealed behind him as he entered the upper corridors. Red emergency lights pulsed against the metallic walls, guiding him deeper into the restricted zone. At a junction, Jonathan found 2 human guards arguing with a Valkyrie sentinel. The wing is sealed, one guard insisted. No entry. The sentinel hissed, a sharp, metallic sound. Your protocols impeded our envoy's safety. Jonathan halted far enough not to draw attention but close enough to listen. Envoy Saris is accounted for, the second guard replied. She is not under threat. The sentinel leaned forward. Her chambers registered an energy fluctuation. Something attempted to breach her perimeter fields. Jonathan's pulse accelerated. Someone attacked her room. Before the argument could escalate, a command tone blared from the sentinel's wrist unit. It paused, listened, then stepped back. Envoy Saris requests Engineer Hale. Jonathan froze. Me! The guards turned, startled. The sentinel gestured. Follow. Rhea was going to kill him later. But he followed. Saris's chambers were dim, lit only by the soft gold glow radiating from her control console. She stood near the center of the room, composed but tense, her mantle discarded on a chair and replaced with her lighter, close-fitted armor. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin rippled slowly, controlled but charged with alertness. Jonathan stepped inside. The door sealed behind him. What happened? He asked. A proximity detonation, she said. Small. Focused. Designed to destabilize, not destroy. He scanned the scorch marks on the outer wall. Someone planted it? No. They triggered it remotely from a compromised subpanel. She pointed to a burnt alcove near the vent. A human-made device. Modified with Valkyrie resonance nodes. It is meant to implicate both our species. That's deliberate. It is sabotage, she said. And you want me to find who did it? I want you to examine the device's remains. She gestured to a small tray containing fragments, shards of metal fused with faint, shimmering residue. Jonathan moved closer, pulling on gloves. The pieces were precise, deliberate. Whoever had built this understood Valkyrie tech well enough to simulate its signatures. This is hybrid work, he said. Human circuitry, alien amplification. Someone with access to both sets of materials. Yes. And they installed it inside a restricted diplomatic room. Correct. Jonathan frowned. Then it has to be someone inside the spire. Saris's eyes sharpened. Or someone who has gained access through indirect means. You mean bribes, leaks, forged clearance? Possibilities, she said. But the more urgent concern is the timing. Tonight's negotiation session concerns the resource treaties. If trust fractures before then, centuries of progress will break with it. Jonathan looked up at her. Why tell me this? I'm not a diplomat. I'm not trained for espionage. No, she said quietly. You are trained to see where systems fail. And you have no allegiance to those who manipulate power. That sounds like a nice way of saying I'm insignificant. It is a way of saying you are uncorrupted. He blinked. Saris stepped closer. And because you entered this path by accident, no one watching the summit sees you as a variable. Jonathan looked down at the tray again. So what do you need from me? Help me uncover how this device was placed, she said. And more importantly, why Lurok was killed. He looked up sharply. Killed. Her jaw tightened. My aide. He was found in the docking ring this morning. The Spire medic claimed accidental decompression. That's not an accident. No, she said. It was a message. The room felt colder. Jonathan exhaled. Tell me what you know. Saris paused only a moment before continuing. Lurock discovered anomalies in the station's supply manifest 2 days ago. Small deviations. Nothing overt. But enough to hint at external interference. And you think it's connected to the bomb? It is part of a pattern. Jonathan rubbed the edge of a shard between his fingers. Someone is testing how far they can push before the summit collapses. Yes. And they think framing humans and Valkyrie will disrupt everything. Yes. Jonathan nodded slowly. Then we have to find the next move before they make it. Saris held his gaze, something fierce, almost hopeful, beneath the surface. You speak as though this is your fight. It became my fight, he said, the moment I opened the wrong door. A faint ripple of light passed through her skin, not distress this time, but something more like recognition. You may regret that, she murmured. I already do, he admitted. But I'm not backing out. Silence settled between them, not heavy, but decisive. Then Saris reached for the wall console and pulled up a holographic map of the spire. The next breach, she said, will be here. Her finger pointed to a chamber near the central negotiation hall. If they strike during the session, all trust will dissolve instantly. Jonathan leaned closer, studying the map. That area is accessible through maintenance shaft. I can get in without raising alarms. Then you must find the source. Find proof. He nodded once. Let's move. Saris stepped beside him, her expression set. For the sake of both our peoples, she said, we cannot fail. Jonathan grabbed his tools, adrenaline sharp and steady. The wrong door had opened a path he could no longer walk away from. And now, together, they were stepping directly into the heart of whoever wanted interstellar peace to burn. Below is Chapter 4, written in death, 1,000 words, tightly focused, smooth, human, with purposeful dialogue, escalating tension, and zero repetition of ideas or phrasing. Chapter 4, Into the Veins of the Spire. Jonathan had crawled through maintenance shafts 1,000 times, but never with this level of urgency threading through each movement. The narrow passage forced him to move on elbows and knees, edging toward the central negotiation hall where the next breach might strike. The air tasted metallic, circulation fans pushing currents through steel lungs. Behind him, Saris moved with quiet precision. Her armor barely brushed the walls, her breathing steady. Jonathan had the uncomfortable realization that she'd memorized the spire's skeleton faster than most engineers who worked on it. How far? She asked softly. Another 60 meters, he whispered back. The conduit chamber is just past the heat exchanger. Will the diplomats begin soon? 20 minutes. Then we have little time. He pushed forward. The shaft narrowed before widening into a junction. Through the grating, he could see the bright corridor below, empty but heavily monitored by cameras. They moved on. The spire's noises shifted around them, hum of gravity stabilizers, faint vibrations of the elevator ring, distant murmurs of footsteps. The summit's tension seeped through every wall like static. Jonathan stopped at a vertical column and tapped his wrist tool. This is it. Saris knelt beside him. The faint glow beneath her skin pulsed gently, alert but contained. What do you expect to find? She asked. Either a device, a trigger relay, or someone who's very determined to be in the wrong place. And if we find the saboteur? We don't fight, he said quickly. We alert security. She gave him a long look. You know they will not reach us in time. Still better than dying in a vent. Saris's eyes narrowed as though she disagreed, but let the matter rest. Proceed, she said. Jonathan opened the access latch and lowered himself into the conduit chamber. The chamber was dim, lit only by emergency strips running along the walls. A maze of pipes, bundles of cabling, and coolant lines zigzagged through the space like arteries. It was normally quiet, but today an odd pulse vibrated through the floor, a subtle, rhythmic thrum. Jonathan froze. That's not a station frequency, he whispered. Saris dropped beside him, eyes sharp. Show me. He placed a hand on the conduit. The pulse continued, light, steady, almost coded. It's a remote signal, he said. Someone's activating something nearby. Locate it. Jonathan scanned the chamber quickly. Something glinted behind a coolant pipe. He leaned in, then hissed softly. A matte black sphere, no bigger than his palm, clung to the pipe with a magnetic anchor. Thin wires tapped directly into the spire's power lines. A soft violet glow pulsed at its core. Saras studied it with a controlled intensity. Valkyrie resonance pattern. And human circuitry, Jonathan replied. Same hybrid design as the device that hit your room. This one is more advanced, she murmured. Jonathan examined the wires. And harder to disarm. Saras looked at him. Can you disable it without triggering the failsafe? I can bypass the resonance capacitors, he said. But the timing is tight. If the frequency shifts. A faint voice echoed from the far side of the chamber. Careful, engineer. It would be a shame if this delicate piece vanished too soon. Jonathan turned sharply. A figure stepped from behind a support pillar. Human, tall, wearing a dark maintenance uniform with no insignia. His hair was clipped short, face narrow, expression disturbingly calm. Saras blocked Jonathan instinctively, stance ready. The man smiled. Envoy Saras, I had hoped you'd arrive sooner. It would make this far simpler. Jonathan's voice tightened. Who are you? A technician. A facilitator. A believer in a future where your species doesn't control ours. His eyes flicked toward Saras. Or threaten it with false promises. Saras's tone cooled. You murdered Lurok. The man shrugged. He saw more than he should have. Same as you, engineer. Jonathan swallowed. What do you want? To end this misguided summit before it binds humanity to an alliance that will crush it, he replied. Your kind thinks you stand equal to the Valkyrie. You do not. So we must act before we become subservient. Saras took a step forward. The summit aims to prevent war. War. The man laughed. War is inevitable. Alliances only delay domination. Jonathan felt a cold dread settle in. You think sabotaging this place will help humanity? I think exposing the Valkyrie as unstable and dangerous will restore perspective. You planted the devices, Jonathan said. Both of them. I built them, the man corrected. Gathered materials that mysteriously went missing from the stores. His gaze flicked to Saras. Your aid almost uncovered that. Saras's glow intensified, anger carefully restrained. Jonathan whispered, He's trying to provoke you. I am aware. The man tapped a small remote. The device's pulse quickened. Jonathan stiffened. Don't. I won't detonate it, the man said. Not yet. The diplomats will begin soon. I want them to witness the failure firsthand. A scare. A message. Just enough to shatter trust. Saras's voice cut through the air like a blade. You are willing to risk thousands of lives. Risk is necessary when peace is poison. Jonathan stepped slightly forward. You're going to get people killed. Let me disarm it. And why would I let you? The man asked. Jonathan kept his breathing steady. Because if you wanted an explosion, it would have gone off already. You want theater, not bodies. Saras glanced at him, surprised, but approving. The man considered this. You're perceptive, engineer. A shame you've chosen the wrong side. Saras shifted subtly, preparing to strike. Jonathan caught the motion and whispered, Don't. He'll trigger it. The man smiled darkly. Listen to your friend, envoy. Jonathan's eyes scanned the room, searching for leverage. Maybe we can negotiate. No negotiation, the man said. Just observation. But his confidence was too smooth. Jonathan realized he wasn't checking his surroundings. Meaning, he had backup. Jonathan subtly activated his wrist tablet and fired a silent ping through the spire's internal diagnostic. It bounced off a nearby transceiver and relayed a location tag. Rhea. Please check the conduit chamber security logs now. Urgent. He only hoped she would see it. The saboteur stepped closer to the sphere, tapping the device with 2 fingers. The pulse pattern will destabilize the chamber's containment field. When the lights flicker, the diplomats will scatter like startled animals. They will blame the Valkyrie. They always do. Saris spoke slowly. Your actions will start the war you claim to fear. Better a clean fight than slow submission. Jonathan had heard enough. He shifted his weight, eyeing the nearest coolant pipe. A quick strike could rupture it, flooding the chamber with freezing spray. Dangerous, but it would knock the saboteur off balance long enough to. His wrist tablet buzzed once. A single word appeared. Now. He moved. Jonathan slammed the wrench against the pipe. Frost exploded outward in a violent burst. The saboteur gasped and stumbled back as white vapor engulfed him. Saris launched forward with inhuman precision, tackling the man before he could reach the remote. They crashed to the floor in a flurry of limbs and armor. Jonathan threw himself at the sphere. The pulse raced faster, nearing detonation threshold. He ripped out the resonance wires, overriding the stabilizer with a manual surge. The sphere flickered, hummed, then powered down with a hollow click. Silence filled the chamber. Saris restrained the saboteur with a grip that would have shattered steel. He struggled uselessly, fury twisting his face. Jonathan collapsed back against the pipes, breath shaking. Saris looked at him with something unspoken, acknowledgement, gratitude, perhaps something deeper. You acted without hesitation, she said. I figured waiting wasn't an option. She rose, dragging the saboteur upright. He will face judgment. Jonathan exhaled. And the summit? Continues, Saris said. Because of you. Jonathan wiped frost from his gloves. This isn't over. No, she agreed. This was only the first open strike. She met his eyes, amber glow steady. And now, Jonathan Hale, you are part of this conflict whether you wish to be or not. The corridor lights flickered, just once, as if the spire itself acknowledged the shifting balance. And in that moment, Jonathan understood. The wrong door hadn't opened a single path. It had opened a war.